social distancing or physical distancing is going to continue for weeks, maybe even months at this point. But the federal government isn't releasing any projections on just how bad this could get. Is that the right move?
Do you feel that this has become the new water cooler conversation? In every chat that I've had with friends or family on FaceTime or conference apps, the first thing that we talk about is, so what are you hearing? How much longer do you think? And then people weigh in with June, July, September, next year, whatever. And then the conversation becomes about who's not social distancing and what they saw at the beach or at the grocery store, and people who aren't physically distancing and how that will extend this time. And then we go back to the projections. Like, I think that this is the obsession right now. Would you say the same thing?
Yeah. I agree. And I think that earlier this week, I was talking about how I kind of wanted to know more and more details and where the outbreaks are. But honestly, one thing I've noticed in the past week is that I feel better the less kind of tapped in I am, especially with news. I'm really protecting a kind of space around this because I know what I'm supposed to do right now, which is stay indoors as much as possible and physically distance from people. So as long as I'm following that, I'm doing what I'm being told. And I think that the reason why the governments are choosing to kind of withhold this information is because if the projections are grim, the chances are that people can get depressed. I mean, I think there's all kinds of ramifications if the projections are really grim. And then on the flip side, if projections are hopeful, then I worry, and I'm sure the government does too, that people will just start taking this lightly and start, loosening things up. And then we have another crisis on our hand, right?
I think you're totally right, Cynthia. I think the government is in a tough spot because Ontario Premier Doug Ford said, we're not going to release the model projections, A, because they're changing every single day. And B, he says, I don't want to cause people to panic. On the other hand, our prime minister is taking the approach similarly, saying similar things. But I actually think it's a very smart thing to not release these projections, at least right now, because we're at the beginning of it. We're not halfway through. I don't think we're seeing the end for a while also. But the prime minister, I think, is doing something for our mental health. And that is something called locus of control. So anybody who understands the anxiety we're kind of collectively feeling knows we feel very out of control over most of our lives right now. We're stuck at home. But if you actually say to people, this is on you, the more you comply, the quicker this will be over. And I actually think that gives us back a little sense of control and that we are in control of how this turns out rather than just saying, these are the numbers, doom and gloom. And like you said, Sin, I think it could send some people into a very, very difficult place.
Well, anxiety levels are very, very high right now. And, it isn't just for us, but it's for kids too, for young people. I know, Blaze is keeping track of this. There are fears right now, and we need only look to the states who did release numbers and see how scary that can be.
And I don't know how that's turning out for them yet.
Yeah, true. I'm kind of shocked personally about how complacent I am about all of this. I just feel like a sheep who's listening to the shepherd, and the shepherd is telling me to just behave. And I'm like, okay, I'll behave. That's no problem. And I'm also shocked at how quickly this has just become the new norm, like going to the grocery store and lining up 6 feet apart and seeing people wearing masks. And even doing what we're doing right now, which is talking through our computers and stuff and tablets, and we're being put on air. It feels normal. It's overwhelming.
I'm curious for you, Jess, because you were in Italy as this was just beginning. And I'm wondering for you especially, does seeing, or maybe for all of us, I don't know, does seeing the horror in China and Spain and Italy and other parts of the world before us, is that making us comply much more quickly?
I wonder, Mel, you have a good point. I haven't thought about it as thoughtfully as you just have, but I think you're onto something right there. The fact that coming back out of Italy and being there while museums were closed, while churches were closed, and then getting home and being like, oh, this is going to happen. I think subconsciously I did absorb some of that. You're right.
Yeah.